please join me in welcoming a great champion for conservation, my good friend, Jeff Fortenberry, the Congressman from Nebraska.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn.
Well, first of all, let me thank Colin and those of you who worked on that. How generous of you to put together such a video with such kind remarks, how overly generous of you. I'm honored to be here with you and so thankful for the opportunity to receive an award, but I thought what I was doing was just pursuing sound public policy that made sense, helping policy But I will say this to you, that your efforts, and all of you state by state, by raising a level of consciousness about the importance of conservation, preservation of habitat, good stewardship of our land resources, helps create an environment where these public policies help us do what we ought and are widely accepted. So I want to return thanks to you all for, again, the generous award tonight, but the contribution you've made to creating an environment in which these things are possible. You know, when I was first elected to Congress, I wanted to share this story with you. I have 5 daughters, and when I was first in Congress, 4 of them were very little. One was born after I was elected. And my oldest, who just graduated from high school, when she was little, she called me one day. She was all excited. She had just been to the zoo, and she had learned about groups of animals like a herd of deer or a gaggle of geese, and she was really eager to talk to me, and so she calls. And she says, "Daddy, Daddy, guess what?" I said, "What is it, sweetie?" She says, "Do you know what a group of frogs is called?" I said, "I have no idea." She said, "A Congress." So there's a lot of levels of meaning there. But being entrusted with the truly awesome responsibility to govern our nation is a very high privilege, and I frankly think a noble calling. Those of us in political office, in our country at large, I think we have to work hard to restore a deep understanding of how important our government is, again, for setting up the guardrails so that society at large can flourish. When I was a young person growing up in the 60s and 70s, I remember as a child watching development occur. Now, we think of development in good terms, naturally and normally. But as the baby boom generation was coming into more and more affluence in the economy, I just remember watching, for instance, whole groves of trees just be pushed down and then put into a pile to be burned. And that always bothered me. I thought, that's wasteful. And then a house would go in, and then a tree would be planted. Is there a better way somehow to integrate more harmoniously into the environment? Years later, when I was elected to the first political office I served in, the Lincoln City Council, there was again, in the 90s, significant interest by persons to have a little place in the country. And so there was a real development pressure on the edges of the city. Now, the balance here, though, was to actually find a way to properly develop so that persons could enjoy the gift of the natural environment, but do so in a way that doesn't actually take away the gift that they're interested in purchasing. A developer came along one day and proposed a different alternative for us. Instead of creating 20-acre plots for mini homesteads that were all nicely manicured and their lawns were well kept, instead of doing that, he asked for what he called a cluster bonus, in which more houses could be put on the same plot of land. In return for that, they would be more proximate to each other, and the vast open space of the original farmstead, along with the pond and the original barn, would be kept for everyone's enjoyment. On the other side of the hill, there was a natural runoff created through a wetland so that the water could be purified before it returned to the creek and ultimately to the river. I said, "I'm in." Let's do it. So I think what we have begun to see is a way in which we, through your efforts and others, have raised the consciousness of a nation to ensure that, as was just mentioned, habitat is not fragmented, that development by persons can be harmoniously integrated into the natural environment and actually enhance it. We just went through a 100-year flood in Lincoln, Nebraska. For the last 20 years or so, we've tried to expand certain waterways, make them into recreational projects, put open spaces by the larger bodies of water. And guess what happened? Those open spaces, which are ballparks, flooded. The large, big system of the old creek that runs through downtown, which was enlarged, and there's a bike trail next to it. The water rose above the bike trail, but it contained the floodwaters. No one was hurt in the city of Lincoln. No harm came to the homes. The recreation areas absorbed the water. The additional green space, which is used to enhance the beauty of the environment of the city, actually served a dual purpose of flood control and protections for persons who live there. So I think all of these are positive and strong movements. So when the Farm Bill came along, to try to think about creative ways in which we're not giving incentives to plow under erodible land or natural prairie, and working with Senator Stabenow in the Senate, I'm very proud that we were able to get this done. It was suggested that there might be pushback from the Agriculture Committee or community. I didn't get any pushback. Again, good public policy empowers us to do what we ought. And so I was proud to have a minor contribution in this attempt to bring about environmental stewardship and proper care of our natural resources while using the gift of the land to provide for ourselves and our families. And I think that maybe is a 21st century architecture as to how to think about your efforts as well as ours in public policy to properly steward our good resources on this wonderful green earth. So thank you all so much. This is very generous of you. I want to call out as well Josh Sachs, who has worked with me personally. Thank you, Josh. As well as Adam Colton. Adam has dialogued with me consistently. Josh has been a good friend. And of course, we want to congratulate Colin on his new position and are really grateful for your leadership. I can't believe you're the CEO. You look so young. I mean, thank you all. God bless.
Nebraska. Very good.